All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome everybody to MVP Office Hours. My name's Jared Kingston. I'm a Salesforce Solution Architect Manager in MVP with Aperio. Unfortunately, my fearless co-hosts are unable to join me today, Jackie Treviso and Dale Ziegler, but they are huge helps to me in running this thing. If you haven't already seen, we have a website, mvpofficehours.info, that gives all the information you need on the office hours. Not just this office hours, but also all the other ones that are running out there. So definitely check that out. Also, we like to open up the office hours each time with the events that are happening around the community. And if you haven't caught on, there is a Dreamin', I should say, event for just about every continent or geography, as you can see now. So basically, there's a road trip essentially leading up to Dreamforce, and then there's a bit of a break, and then there's even more. So get to them. They're awesome. I'm going to hopefully make a few more this year for the ones that are, close by. But definitely check those out. A lot going on there. Next one coming up is in Austin, so you can get good barbecue. Not as good as Kansas City, but pretty close second barbecue, and then Salesforce on top of that. And there's also Hyderabad Dreaming coming up June 23rd too. So a lot out there. So that being said, just kind of run down the details, right? We host this first and third Friday of every month. You can bookmark our registration link there. That will never change. It's open Q&A, right? We'll post this recording, and we'd just like to stay on mute unless you're answering or asking a question so we can hear things clearly. And we're going to use the chat to post resources, etc. We'll record those in this presentation, and if it comes to it, we'll have you share your screen and walk us through it, and we'll try to help solve it. At any rate, the point of this call is really to share pointers, tips, try to solve your question or your issue here, and if not, point you in the right direction and try to get you on the path to resolution. So let's see, what else do I got here? Yeah, and as I said about the site, right, this is not the only MVP office hours. This thing has gone global. We have Carlos on the line, who heads up our Portuguese office hours. We have one in EMEA. APAC is starting back up here on May 30th. We have a students one that happens the first Friday of each month. So a lot going on. And if you know anybody in those geographies, or if you're in there, definitely check those out, and encourage others to as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and we'll open it up for questions. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, thanks. My question is, some feedback, sorry.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My question is, so I have a request from our finance team to populate the month and year in the rears for their invoices and their statements. So if today is May 2018, they would like to have on the invoice April services rendered April 2018. So I have a formula, and I'll post it here in the chat, that pretty much captures that, but in numerical. So it would show 4/18/2018. I guess what I'm looking for is to be able just to grab the month in the name. So it would be April and just the year versus 4/18/2018.
So you're just looking to grab it if it's a certain date or just in general for that date field?
So I guess like a now statement. So if you're creating the invoice this month, pull the previous month's name and year.
Okay.
So
I've actually pull the previous month's name and year. Yeah. So
yes, right now that formula works in terms of a numeric and the date, but I guess I just want it in a and the name displayed as the month and the year only. So
yeah, let me log into a Sandbox real quick, unless anybody knows right off the top of their head. I always forget the exact one, but I have one that I just did previously. So instead of just
yeah, I figured someone had it, and I started to look on the Trailblazer community, but
yeah, let me. Let's see. Oh, I thought I did this. Let me see. Where did I do that at? Give me a second. That was the wrong org. All right. All right, let's see. Yeah, I did this. I did it within a flow, but let me pull that real quick. All right. So yeah, here's basically what you have to do. What you have to add into it. I'm just going to try to copy it here. Paste it into the chat for you.
Okay.
So
But you
this,
see,
this
we're
is
just looking at
this
your
is
PowerPoint right now.
what's that?
I said we're just looking at your PowerPoint. I didn't know if you were trying to show some.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm about to paste it into the chat here. Just so that's essentially what you have to do, right? Because there's no formula, there's no like operator that will give you the name of the month. So this is actually straight from. I remember I use this from Steve Mo actually. So yeah, all you have to do is add into your formula there this case statement to populate that name for the month. So you still pull the case month number, right? And then you're just saying, or sorry, you're still pulling that month out of the date field.
Yep.
Just like you are, but then you're also saying, okay, then take that, and if it's 1, it's January, if it's 2, it's February, etc.
Okay, so you can use those. You can use that case within that existing formula I posted. Okay.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, you would. So like your date, it would be at the top of that, right? So it would be a text formula. So that would be the first thing you want to make sure is it's a text formula.
Right.
Yeah, it would be, you wouldn't have to do that date overall formula there. You would just do a case statement to start forming the string essentially.
Okay, this is helpful. I'll test it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll paste this into the doc. All right, who else? Who else have a question?
I do. This is Carlos.
Hey, Carlos, what's your question, man?
Yeah, I'm trying to help a friend. I never work with, I never develop a community myself, but I used one last year, like extensively. And his request, I believe, is something doable because I have seen, and I just don't know how to point him out in the right direction. He wants to have a community where the external user, he can come and, he pretty much can take a look on his cases. And I think that's very trivial, but I just don't know how to do it. So, if somebody has done that, like you have a community for outside users, your clients. And then I'm sure that they are able to go in there and open a case, say, hey, my TV is not working. Later on, they want to follow up on their cases. I'm pretty sure, I'm 99.99% sure that this can be done, and I just need to have a feedback.
So the question for you is, you're wanting to, like, this is a public, so they want them to be able to follow up on the cases without logging in?
I'm not exactly sure about that because I understand that's a public, as a public community. You don't need a login, you don't need authentication. Like you can go for like FAQs, knowledge and articles. Those things, they are in there. You don't need a login. But in order
Correct.
to create a case, you need to have a login. So what I understood that this guy wants to, I'm the customer, I'm in your websites, I wanted to go in there and log and create a case and say, hey, my TV is not working. And be able to follow up in that, what's the status of the case, has been updated, there's some comments be made in there that. So that was the requirement. So, of course, it requires a login.
Yeah, well, so actually, and let me share, so we have a public community for the MVP office hours website. Actually, that's what we run it on. So you don't have to have a login to create a case. You can actually open that up externally so that a public user can create the case. Some of the user experience behind that isn't necessarily awesome right now. I know they are adding in. I think they're adding in like a redirect, because right now when you create a case, it actually just takes you to the case record in some cases. So yeah, so it's the tricky part is you can open up those records publicly, but it's if you want, you as a single user to be able to see yours. I think it's potentially possible.
Yeah, that's the idea. You open your case and you go in there and you see whatever cases you have, because as I said, in my previous job, we had that. I mean, outside customers, they would create their cases and they would get in there and, the case would get on our queue and we would work the cases, but anytime they could go in there on the community and see the status of their cases. Don't you need a login for that?
No, I think you can make it public. So if I go to,
that's interesting, because how would I know exactly what are my only cases? How you tie them together?
Yeah, that's the tricky part. So that's where I was saying, like, I think you would have to write something custom in order for them to like find their cases, because without a login, right, you don't really, the owner essentially becomes that public profile, right? Or that public user record for the community. So without ownership, now you have to use something else besides ownership, right, to find your set of cases. So it would have to be, based upon your name or email or something like that, right? Some unique identifier. So I think it could be done from a sharing standpoint, like being able to share out those cases. But as far as like what's standard in Salesforce, I don't think you'd be able to, display a list view of cases without having, some sort of standard way of filtering that. It'd be something you'd have to tinker with, because really you obviously want to lock that down so they can only see their cases. I don't know.
But that's you when you're saying that in case that you don't need a login, which, I'm not sure. I mean, at least I would see the other way around, because, for instance, if you have a partner in there and the partner is something else, they automatically have access to things. But as a customer, the user ID, the person itself, you'll be associated with an account. And by doing that, that's how you'd be able to do, but you still have to do a login. That's the way that I have seen, but if you think that can be done without a login, then yeah, I guess there's got to be some custom code behind the scenes in there.
Yeah. So see here on the guest profile, right? I can give the guest profile. So the profile that gets created when you create that site, right, and make it public. I can give them read access to cases. And then the other thing too, right, is you'll have to mess with your sharing settings appropriately, and then you can share those out. But yeah, the trick becomes when you want to see your list of things, because from a standard view, right, you can do a list view page and do that. I'd have to think through how you would do that, but I just don't think there's any way, because you don't have any you don't really know who the user is unless they identify themselves in some way. So that's where I think you'd probably have to you could probably accomplish it through like a custom component, or, like a flow embedded in a component, something that would basically ask the user, something to identify themselves, and then get in and view their cases.
Okay, I'll that's a starting point, but the starting point is with your assumption that there's no login needed. Of course, which I'm not sure, I take your word because I haven't done, but I believe, I would like to believe, hopeful, that you have to do a login, because you have to create your account in there to your community, to your company. And then once you do the login, of course, everything is tied to you, but
so technically you don't have to have an account associated in order to create that case. I mean, it basically acts the same as web to case, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's essentially how it acts when you make it public. So I actually created, so it's all in this contact support. So as long as you make this create case form public, and you choose, your actions, right? And you make sure that profile has access. You can turn off case deflection. You can turn it on. You can give attachments. You can add in the reCAPTCHA stuff. And then you also need to make sure that the page is public right here. So that's where, so you can do that, and it acts just like web to case. So you don't necessarily have to have an account. So you can see here on mine, it's just a simple form of name, email, description as being required, and it'll submit just fine. It just doesn't end up linking to any sort of account. So
that's good. It's a good start. Thanks for the info.
On the flip side, Carlos, this is Stuart. Let's see, how do I describe this? I am a customer of a vendor that they use partner communities, and so I'm a customer of that partner community, and it's a Salesforce communities setup. And when I log in, all I do is cases. So they've exposed cases on their partner community, and all I see is my accounts cases that have been entered, and I can see how they're going through those cases.
Yeah, through a partner, as I said, through a partner it's kind of easier, because by default the partner has access to a lot of stuff in there.
Yep.
And when you go in there, I remember doing this. I mean, I was requested to give access to somebody. If he was on a contact list for that account, fine, I was just there and grant him the access. If not, I have to add him as the contact list for that account, and then they will still have it. That's one thing, because they were partners. But then when they were not partners, they were pretty much just clients. We had a community where they would go, create their cases, and see the case and stuff like that. That's why, I'm trying to figure out if you need a login, and you, or if you don't. But it's a good start here, to collect information.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too, right, is, I mean, just for the record, you can do that same type of deal using custom objects, right? So that's what we do. That's what we actually do on the MVP office hours site. If you want to subscribe to our email newsletter. It's just a custom object, and we just expose that record creation and on the site. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
you are welcome, sir. All right. By the way, Stuart, welcome. Good to hear your voice. You snuck in on me.
That's okay.
All right. Who else?
Hi, this is Jessica. I have a question. It's mainly just I need some ideas.
Go for it.
Okay, so we have a custom object that another admin built on my team. It's for our contracting department. Basically, there are 80 vendors that if we have some identifier change, a custom identifier change, our contracts teams will indicate which one of these vendors we need to send an email out to notify of the change. So what they did is they built a custom object, and they, like I said, there's 4 fields per vendor on here. So it's the vendor's name with a checkbox to see if it's required. And then there's the vendor's name to see if we've received notification back. There's a date field for that vendor saying this is the date we received it back. And then there's a note field for each one. So it's just huge, sheet with just these vendor, with checkboxes and date fields, and it's very large. And so we want to do some customization, because what we're having to do is if they check, 20 of these, then somebody else has to send out 20 emails to the vendor or to 20 different vendors and say that this change was made. And I want to automate that email. So my only choice at this point is to go in, or the only choice I see is to go in and add another checkbox on this to each of these vendors, 80-something vendors. So if we check it, it'll send out the email to them. Now, is there a better way to do this than having to create 80-something additional fields for each of these different vendors on the same object?
So let me just clarify, and then if anybody wants to jump in. So you're wanting to create, so you need a checkbox for a unique checkbox for each vendor?
Well, that's the way it's set up now. I mean, each vendor has their own, each vendor is listed 4 times basically for different, 2 checkboxes, a date field and a note field for each vendor. And so in order to stay true to the current design, I was just going to create another checkbox per the vendor so that it can kick off the workflow rule to send out the email alert. But I don't really want to create 80-something fields. So I was kind of looking for, do we need to rethink the whole process, the whole setup of this object? Or, is my best option to create these 80-something checkboxes?
So you have the one main object, and right now you have, multiple vendors, and you're just using a field per vendor on each one of those.
Yeah, 4 fields per vendor on the same object. Yeah. So basically we create a new record for each change. And then, so on each record, each vendor is listed, and each vendor has 4 fields per vendor.
Yeah, I would say it may, this is going to blow things up for you, but I mean, usually when I have multiples like that, I would end up deferring to a related object off of that record, so that then you have really just, one field that, and then it's a record per vendor. That, like I said, that would blow things up because you'd have to redo a lot of things from a, workflow standpoint. But the but that way your field, from a field creation standpoint, right, you're just adding fields to that object, and it is applicable to, you know, really any vendor you put within, and the vendor creation really is just a record. So that would be my thought. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts. Does that make sense?
Right. So you're thinking like a pick list and then just have the vendors listed in the pick list. And that way, if you only really have to have 10, you would only have 10 fields or 10 records, right?
Yeah, you would have 10 related, you would create a related object
Right.
off of your, change object. And that would have the fields that you're currently, basically replicating per vendor today. It would have those as the fields for that object. And so if you had a new requirement come up that's per vendor, well, all you have to do is just add one field to that object, and then it scales for you over time, and you're not adding, multiple fields that are the same across all the vendors.
Okay. No, that makes sense. We have a current setup of another object that's like that. I don't know why this one was set up this way initially, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Like I said, it'll blow up your current process, because now you have to look to those related objects as far as are those related records as far as, notifications, things like that go. But at least it will scale better for you over time. So if you add new vendors, add additional fields, it's a lot more scalable.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. I'll suggest I have a meeting today about it, and I wanted to come up with something different. So that helps. Thank you.
Awesome. No problem. All right. Who else? Is everybody ready for the summer release?
Yes.
Yeah. There's some cool stuff. I'm excited about it. I've been playing around in a couple of sandboxes that have that have it turned on, and it's still taking me a bit to get used to the setup. Structure has changed, so the search in setup is being used a lot more.
Gotcha.
Stuart, what's up with you, man? You got anything for us? How are things on your end? Stuart, you're on mute. Anybody going to any of the Dreamin' events coming up?
Midwest Dreaming.
That was you, Stuart, or Chris?
Chris.
Nice. Are you speaking, or are you just going to consume?
Consume.
As well? Nice. Awesome. Yeah, that one will be awesome. Any other questions? Believe it or not, Dreamforce registration is just around the corner.
You don't have to know when it is, do you?
I don't. Yeah, even the Salesforce people I know don't know. what it is. So should be coming fairly soon, I would think, given we're just a few months away. So I know that call for speakers, I think, opens here like June 1st or maybe earlier than that. I just saw it the other day. What was that? I've totally botched that. But oh yeah, so call for presentations for admins and devs open up June 1st. So here on the copy, just to yep, so that opens up. I'll paste the links in here too. Devies, no, correct, all right. And then devs. So yeah, if you have something you're passionate about, we'll submit a presentation out there. It's a fun experience for sure. Make one last call if anybody has any questions, or else we'll give people time back in their days. Speak now or hold your peace to the next call or community post. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I know we had a small crowd today, but good conversation. And we look forward to talking to you guys again on June 1st. So enjoy your Memorial Day weekends, and we'll talk to you on the next office hours.
Thank you.
Thanks all.